From Spanish exile to global king, how Julio conquered the world. The year was 1968. In the suffocating grip of Franco's Spain, a young man with dreams bigger than his homeland could contain was about to make a choice that would either destroy him or transform him into a global phenomenon. Julio Iglesias stood at the crossroads of destiny, holding a one-way ticket away from everything he had ever known. Behind him lay a country where his music was censored, his dreams were crushed, and his voice was silenced. Ahead lay the unknown, a world that didn't know his name, didn't speak his language, and had no reason to care about a Spanish singer's broken dreams. But sometimes the greatest empires are built by those who have nothing left to lose. Madrid in the late 1960s was a city wrapped in invisible chains. Franco's regime controlled not just politics, but souls. Every song, every word, every dream had to pass through the iron filter of censorship. For a young artist like Julio, Spain felt like a beautiful prison where creativity went to die. His early songs were butchered by government censors. Love ballads became political statements. Romantic lyrics were dissected for hidden meanings. The regime saw danger in every melody, rebellion in every rhythm. They were right to be afraid. Music has always been the language of revolution. They can cut my words, Julio whispered to himself in those dark Madrid nights, but they cannot silence my heart. But hearts, he would soon learn, needed stages to beat upon. And Spain's stages were reserved for state-approved voices, not for dreamers who dared to sing in their own language about universal love. Julio had watched friend after friend disappear. Some fled to exile, others simply stopped creating. The regime had perfected the art of killing spirits without shedding blood. He packed a single suitcase. Inside were his guitar, a handful of songs written in secret, and a photograph of the Spain he loved but could no longer call home. His family begged him to stay, to conform, to find safety in silence. Safety, he told them, is the graveyard of dreams. The train to Paris moved like a metal serpent through the Pyrenees, carrying him away from everything familiar. Every kilometer was a small death, every mile a rebirth. He pressed his face against the cold window and watched Spain disappear into the darkness. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to become the voice of millions who had never heard his name. Paris in 1969 was a city still breathing the smoke of revolution. Students had nearly toppled the government just months before, and the air still crackled with the electricity of change. For Julio, it was the perfect laboratory to reinvent himself. But exile is a cruel teacher. His Spanish was worthless here. His songs meant nothing to French audiences, who preferred Johnny Hallyday and Brigitte Bardot. Night after night, he performed in tiny clubs where cigarette smoke was thicker than applause. He learned French the hard way, through heartbreak and hunger, through rejection and resilience. Each non was a lesson, each empty chair a motivation. He discovered something profound in those struggling months. Universal emotions need no translation. Love sounds the same in every language. Pain echoes identically across every culture. Hope burns with the same flame, whether you're in Madrid or Manila. Then came Italy, and with it, the first crack in the wall of global indifference. 3 minutes and 12 seconds of melody wrapped around a woman's name. But when Italian radio began playing it in 1970, something magical happened. Listeners didn't hear a Spanish exile, they heard their own stories, their own loves, their own losses. The song climbed the charts like a man climbing out of quicksand, slowly, desperately, victoriously. Suddenly, Julio Iglesias wasn't just a refugee anymore, he was a revelation. But success in Italy was just the beginning. The real test lay ahead, in territories where Spanish blood had never conquered, in cultures that had never bowed to Latin charm, in markets that could make or break global empires. Los Angeles, the city of broken dreams and impossible comebacks, was about to witness something unprecedented. A Spanish singer attempting to crack the most difficult market on earth, English-speaking America. Foreign language artists didn't succeed in America. They survived at the margins, playing to immigrant communities and nostalgia circuits. The music industry machine had a simple message for Julio: learn English perfectly or go home. He chose a third option. Learn to make English feel like Spanish, Spanish sound like Portuguese, Portuguese flow like French. He became a linguistic chameleon, adapting without losing his essence. To All the Girls I've Loved Before, his duet with Willie Nelson, was musical diplomacy at its finest. Country met Latin, Nashville embraced Madrid, and America finally understood what the rest of the world already knew. Julio Iglesias could sing directly to the human soul. By the mid-'80s, Julio had achieved something that seemed impossible just decades earlier. He had become bigger than geography. His concerts filled stadiums from Tokyo to Tehran. He sang in 8 languages, but his real language was emotion. His team was like a United Nations of music industry professionals. His manager was American. His producer was British. His arrangers were from 5 different countries. They didn't just build a career. They engineered a global phenomenon. Record executives who had once dismissed him as just another Latin singer now studied his every move. How do you bottle lightning? How do you mass-produce magic? How do you teach other artists to become universally beloved? The answer was simpler than they imagined. Be authentic in every language you sing. 1 billion records sold, more than any male singer in history. Albums that went platinum in countries where Spanish wasn't spoken by a single person. Concert tours that required translators not for languages, but for different types of applause. But numbers, impressive as they were, couldn't capture the real victory.
Julio had proven that borders exist only on maps, that language barriers crumble before genuine emotion, that a Spanish exile could become a citizen of the world.
In countries still ruled by dictators, his songs became anthems of freedom. In democracies, they became soundtracks to love. In every corner of the earth, they became proof that one voice, if true enough, could speak for everyone. Today, when young artists dream of global stardom, they study the Julio Iglesias playbook. Not the techniques, those can be learned, but the courage, the willingness to leave everything behind for something greater, the faith that authentic artistry transcends every boundary humans create. He had fled Spain as a refugee and conquered the world as a king, not through force, but through song, not through politics, but through pure, undiluted human connection. The boy who once packed a single suitcase in Madrid had unpacked his dreams across 6 continents. Franco's regime had tried to silence one voice, and accidentally created a global symphony. In the end, Julio Iglesias' real conquest wasn't of markets or charts or record sales. It was of something far more precious. Proof that the human spirit recognizes no borders, acknowledges no limitations, and bows to no authority except the truth of its own authentic expression. His exile had become the world's gain. His loss had become humanity's gift. His journey from Spanish refugee to global emperor proved that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defending what you have, but from having the courage to lose everything in pursuit of something greater. The king had found his kingdom, and his kingdom was everywhere music could reach a human heart.